This is Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top questions and things you struggle with most so you can have more energy and less decision fatigue about what to eat, how to move, and you can change your thoughts to flip 50 with the life and the energy you love in this second half. And we are all over talking about adrenal fatigue this month, and I'm talking about it both with the fitness professionals I coach and with you here at Flipping 50. And my guest today is going to be a wealth of information. Debbie Potts has been in the fitness industry for over 25 years and a competitive endurance athlete for 20 years. Along her journey, she has accomplished many goals, including being nominated as one of the top 100 best trainers in the U.S. by Men's Journal in 2004 and 2005, as well as participating in 15 Ironman Triathlons. 5 of them were the World Ironman Championship in Kona, Hawaii. And for those of you that aren't triathletes, that is like heaven if you're a triathlete. Debbie is a speaker, podcast host. The Whole Athlete is her podcast, and an author of Life is Not a Race, as well as the WHOLESTIC Method manual and workbook. We coach clients how to become fat burners, optimize health, and improve their performance in life and sports with the WHOLESTIC Method. Debbie does her best to walk the talk. She was a competitive top age group triathlete, marathoner, and cyclist, but since 2013, she's been recovering and rebuilding from adrenal exhaustion and burnout. In November 2016, she shared her personal story in a book called Life is Not a Race, to help others avoid going through what she has been living life as a daily race. Debbie, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on the show today. It's really exciting to be on someone else's show that's similar passion and purpose as I do with sharing our messages.
So awesome. And, to hear your story, you were really, I think we have to relate you to the audience that, being in an extreme sport. And just for listeners who don't know what an Ironman is, let's paint the picture. So an Ironman's day is what? So let's relay what that's like.
It's a 2.4 mile swim, and then you go bike 112 miles, and then you run 26.2 miles to the glorious finish line.
Yeah. In other words, you do a marathon after you've done all that. So any of you who thought, I would never do a marathon, this is after you've done all those other things, just as a little warm up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, very cool. So I think the number was what, 15? Is that right?
Yeah, I just did 15 plus a couple others there that I didn't do the whole thing because I had already qualified for Ironman Hawaii. So yeah, it just gets kind of part of your routine every year and it's what you do for your hobby.
Very cool. So endurance athletes are probably a little bit more prone to this than anybody else. Talk about your experience just a little bit as a competitive Ironman triathlete, because that is some time consumption right there. And then, you're coming out the other end, with your personal story. Where, when you look back, does, adrenal fatigue and exhaustion, where'd that come in? How'd it creep up on you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I started doing marathons and shorter distance triathlons, and before, I think year 2000, 1999, I started training for my first marathon, and then I started doing Ironman in 2001. And so I was doing this for a long time, doing marathons, 50K trail runs, and other little races along the way that were kind of what we call C races, and you've got your A race every year. And I just was doing this on top of working full-time as a fitness trainer and a manager at the time at a health club. I opened up my own fitness studio and running my own business in about 2007. And, running your own business, no matter what field it is, you have a lot more stress and responsibility. So you're not just going to work, showing up, but for me, I was personal training clients and teaching group sessions and whatnot. But then you still have another job after that. So I was doing that on top of swimming, biking, and running 4 sessions per week of each sport, plus doing strength training and yoga and then teaching other classes. So it's just a lot in each day. So I wrote my book, Life is Not a Race, when I started to feel this onset of fatigue in 2013. And I just answer your question, I was wanting to do it more therapeutically, to write this going back in time, wondering, where did this come up? How did I even not know I was going to be sideswiped with this total exhaustion in March 2013? So, I didn't know at the time, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. And it doesn't creep up on us. There's red flags along the way that I didn't realize until now. So it's just, doing too much every day and being chronically busy and just being on all the time.
Got it. Okay. Do you want to share what were some of those signs and symptoms? I mean, the early ones that you just ignored, or maybe, I think any listener can identify with this. We don't in our society get rewarded or praised or encouraged to take a day off or to rest. We get this badge of honor or wear it like that if we sleep less, right? Or if we work extra, we go in early, we stay late. Those things are like, oh yeah, you're so great. But we don't get rewarded or praised for taking time off necessarily. I mean, so was it anything related to that? Or what were you ignoring?
I think it's feeling like you're superhuman and Debbie's so amazing. And she can, I'd get up and train clients in the morning and work all day, then go do master swim. And then I'd go home and ride a bike and then maybe short run and then go back to work. And then maybe I fit yoga in there to relax. It was just filling my day up too much. And it's just, I'm always packed from what I always say in my book is you wake up, the alarm goes off and you don't stop until you go back to bed at night. And what I was doing when I was running my own business is training some clients at 5 something in the morning. Because I had a client, her husband was the quarterback for Seattle Seahawks at the time. And she had to get in early because he had to go to training in his rehab. And so I was training her at 5 a.m. for a long time. And so what did I do? I'd wake up at 3:45 in the morning and would get ready. And I got in this bad habit of checking my email first thing in the morning before I started work and getting organized for the day. I was like, why am I doing that? It's silly because we should still be asleep, but emails can wait. So that was part of it. And then I'd be going all day busy and maybe taking a 5:30 yoga class. If I didn't have a client and wasn't working, I would go to yoga. So I wasn't getting home till 7:30 at night, every night during the week. And so it doesn't have to be that you're a triathlete or running your own business. It's just, are you constantly busy and you never stop, slow down? And what I say now, reset and recalibrate, take a 20-minute nap or just stop and go for a walk and just chill out. So I think that's a major red flag. And I see it so much in my own coaching clients or just observe people anywhere. You just see everyone's just rushing and you feel like you're eating, you're rushing, you're driving your car and you're all anxious because of traffic. And then we get home and we've got 10 things to do at once. And it's just this nonstop race. But I'm trying to create that awareness for people because that was my big thing.
Yeah, I so identify, and I'm sure listeners can too. It's exactly what we do, whether you're a triathlete or not, shifting from work to family to work to family. We're never disconnected. Totally identify with that. You share a couple of nuggets. I'm going to ask you if there was something out of that you would say, here's like top 10 commandments. What would go on that right there? Is it don't check email before X in the morning? Or what are a couple of things that you abide by now that you didn't then?
Definitely. I got lots. I find sleep is a major one. So I just keep talking about this all the time with my own clients that it's, like you said earlier, we try to do more during the day, so you sacrifice sleep. So I was going to bed way too late and waking up too early. So then you're just breaking yourself down then. So for myself now, sleep is serious. I need my 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And I'm not very social at night because I have to get up at 4:30. I have clients at 5:30. Some days, if I have clients at 6 or 7, I try to go do some mobility work myself, or else I don't get it done. So I still wake up at 4:30 in the morning, not as early, but I still need to go to bed about 8 o'clock at night. And if I go to bed at 9, I am feeling tired and grumpy the next day. And it's just not a good day. So sleep for me is a major priority. Making sure I set the room up so I'm going to go to sleep and relax. So I have my little lavender diffuser, essential oil in the diffuser. I make sure the lights are dimmed or turned down really low, and make sure there's no, flashing lights or anything in the room. So it's kind of those biohacks, so to speak, for your bedroom to help that sleep. If it's summertime and it's light out, I'd have to wear a sleep mask, and there's no cell phones allowed and iPads in the room ideally. And if so, you're reading something on an electrical device, make sure we wear blue blocking glasses. And I'm trying to read. I have so many books that stack up that I want to read. And I have a simple goal of reading 3 pages before I go to bed at night. And that usually makes me relax and unwind a little bit. So sleep is a big one for me. Other things are just stopping and taking some deep breathing exercises that help you really reset. And I'm sure you've talked a lot about the parasympathetic nervous system versus sympathetic, and just getting back into the parasympathetics and some deep breathing exercises. Working on measuring my heart rate variability in the morning is something else I do. And there's lots of other ones, but I think a lot of times it's just stopping when you're eating to sit down. I don't rush and eat. I actually make time to come home and I eat lunch and focus on just chilling, because if stress is on, digestion is turned off. So I make sure I sit and just enjoy a meal instead of just throwing stuff down and rushing to the next appointment. So there's many things, what I call now the holistic method of different elements we need to take care of ourselves to really be healthy.
I love that you mentioned that. The great quote. So if you don't walk away with anything else, although there's 2 I've already highlighted. Sleep is serious. That is good. And then yes. if stress is on, digestion is off. So important. So repeat that one. If you are driving in your car alone, nobody will know, but really important that you take seriously stopping to take that break, because otherwise you don't have the right enzymes in your gut to digest food. So you cause your own problems with digestion and elimination when you could control stress. And I know we can't always control it, but we can control somewhat our response to it and buffer for ourselves what it is we're doing while we're in the middle of that storm. So love that you mentioned those. Okay. So, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned outside of sleep potentially and the digestion, taking time to eat, taking a break? Anything else that really stands out for you?
There's a really big one I see a lot of times in, nutritionally. I think I learned years ago about metabolic efficiency and being a fat burner, not a sugar burner, and experimenting with that, not having my healthy orange juice and banana bagel before I go work out. So, experimenting.
Okay, hold on a second. So we have a vulnerable group here. Let's make sure. Do you all know that she's being sarcastic?
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that is not healthy. That's sarcastic. I used to, back in the early day, I thought I was being so healthy. And that's one thing I wrote about in my book, is that I realized here's some red flags. I used to always diet and do the, low fat, high carb food plans. And I used to be kind of vegetarian and eat all the fake protein items to get more protein. And from that, I learned a lot over the years in triathlon coaching and different programs I've taken that, we're not supposed to be sitting here and burning sugar. we should be sitting here and burning fat when I'm doing a long, slow run, or if I'm going to bike ride, I should be burning fat. But instead, the way I used to always eat, I was just this blood sugar roller coaster, having all that blood sugar rising foods. So the thing I really learned about over the years before it became so kind of trendy almost now is this, eating more healthy fats and not being afraid of avocado and coconut oil and putting some butter on foods. I mean, that was like, no, you don't do that, as everyone probably remembers growing up that way, that fat's so bad. So now, learning how to be comfortable eating healthy fats and switching my food plan up, because as we were saying, when stress is on, digestion is turned off because your stress response system, technically the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary gland to the adrenal gland axis, it's this whole chain of events happens. And if we're constantly stressed, I think of the emergency response team, the HPA axis has to respond. So if we're constantly asking our body to respond to this stress, everything else is put on hold, including digestion, as we just mentioned. But also to respond to that stress, say I need to run from that lion and sprint away as fast as I can and then get away, we need quick fuel. So our body's going to produce more sugar or raise our blood sugar up when we're stressed. So part of my problem I had over the years was becoming, having this blood sugar dysregulation and shutting off my ability to burn fat and leading to this high blood sugar without even having anything to do with my low heart rate exercising and my low carb, high fat food plan that works best for my body. But now I became insulin resistant because of my chronic stress. So that's, a major thing for me when stress is on. You're increasing your blood sugar, and you need to balance your blood sugar. And as a nutritional therapist, we work on teaching people that the main goal is to find what foods that you can eat macronutrients, your good healthy sources of real food, carbs, protein, and fat, to balance out the blood sugar so you avoid the surges of insulin. So I'm always interested in all these low carb, high fat groups and people that are into keto, that it's like, all right, but do you have chronic stress? Are you able to digest your food properly? Because those two things, stress is on, digestion is off, stress is on, blood sugar goes up. So you need to really take care of the whole you from the inside out, as I say.
Yeah, I love that. Such a great analogy. And the beginning of our Flipping 50 TV season 3, the very first episode, if many of you remember who've been watching, our episode 27 was all about a woman in her 60s training for her first triathlon on keto. And that was exactly my response to her, was all about, okay, let's take a look at what's happening in your signs and your signals. Here's what to watch for. So glad you mentioned that. And I hope all of you listeners heard the nuggets in what Debbie said about stress. Not just you could have what you think is a pristine diet, but stress can still wreak havoc. And if your estrogen is elevated, even relative to the cortisol blocks progesterone, then you have estrogen dominance. That's why that weight is being deposited in your belly as well. So even if you're not experiencing yet those feelings of adrenal fatigue or exhaustion, you can have some early signs and symptoms showing you, hey, pay attention here, right?
Yeah, definitely. That was, I think, the most major red flag for me in 2013 when this kind of suddenly felt like it came on, was not only fatigue and not being able to train at all. I was just couldn't ride my bike, and I was, usually a really good, strong cyclist, and I couldn't even pedal. I had no energy. But the big thing was I felt like overnight 30 pounds. And I went from being the lean, strong, athletic, really good race. My top races were in 2012, that end of August. It was Ironman Canada. Then I did 70.3 Worlds, and I did probably in October was Ironman in Hawaii. And then, suddenly that March, I had nothing. And by June, I had 30 pounds extra weight and I lost muscle, gained weight, fat weight. And that's a big sign of HPA dysregulation is having that weight gain, as you just described, mood disorders, fatigue and weakness. You're tired but wired. You're tired in the day, but then, you get wired, so your circadian rhythm's off. And then thyroid irregularities, it just is all connected. So if one thing goes off with your adrenals, you get this whole domino effect on your body systems. So it's really so much to look at.
So much. Yeah, love that. And like you've said, and we've mentioned together, you are getting signs and symptoms. So if you happen to be listening and you're thinking, well, I don't have that, you may, if you take a different look at it, it's like turn that kaleidoscope and look from a different angle. And I think, Debbie, tell me if you experience this with clients that you're working with too, that often, we're told kind of keep driving and, if you have a lack of energy, you probably need to exercise more, or if you're putting on weight, our natural intuitive device is, oh, well, I need to step it up. I need to do more exercise. And that can actually just drive things worse or further and faster in the wrong direction.
So much. And I have a client that I'm coaching to do Grand Canyon, this amazing rim to rim hiking event. And we're just having this conversation the other day, and it seems like I have it every day with somebody that they're not losing any weight and they're doing all this long hiking and run walking and strength training and yoga. And she's doing Orange Theory, this and that. And she's like, I haven't lost a pound. And I asked, how do you feel? And, she realized she's trying to work on nutrition, but I go, how much are you sleeping at night? How's your sleep? And she said, that's been a struggle for 10, 20 years. So, I always say to people, and I wrote a blog the other day, you can't out exercise a bad diet, but also you can't lose weight if you are doing this excessive exercise and you have some hormonal imbalance, HPA dysregulation. If you have, chronic stress inside or outside of your life, it could be something inside your gut. So it could be all various sources. It's a beaker of stress. So it kind of all accumulates as stress, no matter where it's from, that it can cause us to gain weight, as you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So what if I said to you, all right, I want to train for a triathlon, and how do I do that and stay healthy?
Yes, I'm trying to talk a lot about that lately in the podcast and my blog. I just find that you really need to be careful. And I want to teach people how to do triathlons and avoid adrenal exhaustion, this chronic fatigue from chronic stress. So if you're going to add it in, sometimes less is more. More is not better. And learning how to take time out and reset as needed. A big thing is measuring heart rate variability. So using a Bluetooth heart rate monitor and doing use Sweetbeat Life, and there's some other ones. But just doing a little 5-minute test every morning to measure your nervous system. It can tell you if your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems are somewhat imbalanced or out of balance or out of whack. And it gives you a little score, say 1 to 100, 100 being higher the better, depending on the person. And then you can tell what's off, when you need to take an active recovery day or just go for a walk instead of a run. So I use that a lot to test people. Are we doing too much? How are you responding? Do we need more recovery? How are you sleeping? Working all that. A lot of it is overtraining is a challenge. So maybe some shorter workouts, maybe one day doing some intervals, other days doing training by a lower heart rate. And, not doing what I've also found that I did early on in my career is doing too little calories and trying to do intermittent fasting and this, working on the low carb, high fat stuff and not eating anything. And sometimes, less, I was eating too little. So finding the right amount of nutrition that you need to keep you fueled and energized. And also, as I said, sleeping, but breathing, just taking a few deep breaths in and how just feeling that reset of your nervous system, strengthening the vagal tone, and doing that before you eat and before you rush to your next deployment and whatnot. So those are kind of ways I train a holistic athlete, that we work on all those different elements so you can be ready on race day and be healthy and energized the next day.
Yeah, fantastic. And I'm just going to echo what you said, that one of the mistakes that you were making, and I think it's very common with women, particularly, that we have as listeners, we tend to eat too little.
Yeah.
And very often when I'm working with a client, it may not be at the beginning, but it may be, in fact, as you're progressing. If you're finding at the beginning of your program, you were doing okay and you were seeing some success and progress, and then suddenly you've plateaued. It may be you've created a more fit body that needs more fit fuel in order to function. You can't push on the brake and the accelerator at the same time. So awesome. So awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you practice? So we're really going to geek out here. So do you practice this? I applied a little principle of reducing the volume significantly and increasing intensity and doing some back-to-back kind of workouts to help decrease that cortisol increase that happens just from miles and miles of slogging slow. I mean, do you play with your athletes in that way in the training regimes that you give them?
Yes, and I'm actually doing this program right now with Ben Greenfield, this Keon Coach program. He's doing a beta test with us because I was a superhuman coach with him, and working on the circadian rhythm and when's the best time to exercise. So in the morning, more of a lower heart rate, kind of wake up type of workout, and loosen up at mid-afternoon. And it ends up being that's when I work out, is doing my bike or run. It is finding that, not going longer and doing, not going as long as I used to. So you're not doing too much endurance training, but also, as you're saying, doing some intervals and cardio bursts. And I am just trying to do that more because I find that, I'm still measuring my blood sugar lately, trying to, sometimes it'll be at 100, and I have been fasting and trying to do, the good macronutrients so I feel energized. But, it's kind of fun. You have to test out yourself because everyone's bio-individual and unique. So not one way system is going to work for everyone. So for myself, I am trying to add a little more intervals because I've always been trained to do this long, slow maffetone type of training. That's max aerobic functions 180 minus your age, plus or minus 5 beats. Or we did metabolic testing. So we figured out our range, and then you should get faster at those lower heart rates. But as I find my body and for hormonal response, I do need to add a little more cardio blasts, cardio bursts, and do more sprints. And I think for me, that's beneficial. I find it very fine line, though, how many people do too much, especially examples, Orange Theory's almost next door to me. And so many people kind of get sucked in and doing high intensity interval training too much. So it's always that Goldilocks effect to say, how much is too much? What's your tipping point? How much can you tolerate that it's not healthy for you, but not too little? It's like the extreme. I say people that just do yoga all the time, the people that just do HIIT training, you need to meet in the middle and mix it up. Because I always believe we need yoga, we need Pilates, and we need high intensity interval training. And then we just need some plain old cardio and just mix it up. And that's what I always strive to offer at my fitness studio. But just when I'm coaching people too, it's, if you just do yoga, you're missing out on a lot too. And the people that are just doing HIIT training really need to learn how to slow down and just do yoga. So the variety pack. Yeah,
love that. Totally agree. And I love what you said about, bio-individuality. We're all very different. And that's where we come back to this again and again, that when somebody says, I'm doing everything right, I'm eating healthy, and I'm exercising, we really have to dive now into, because we have the tool to dive into, is it healthy for you? Is it, healthy exercise for you, the healthy dose and the type and the timing and all of that? I love exactly what you're saying. Say a little bit more, because you've got a method, the holistic method approach. What is that? Can you describe it?
Well, I do nutritional therapy as a nutritional therapy practitioner. It's more of the hands-on approach. So that's a 30-day, different sessions that we work on finding the root cause of these unexplained symptoms by a functional evaluation, palpating on their different reflex points. But I add that into what I was saying. There's 8 elements of the holistic method that I address with each client that I'm coaching, and it's nutrition, exercise, of course, but then it's the sleep and the stress, movement. And then we have digestion, gut health, and hydration. And the last one that's almost most important one is happiness. And I find all these different elements of the holistic method all overlap. And so if one is off, the other is off, and they all influence each other. So I like to coach people and work on each of those 8 elements. And the manual I put together as a chapter in each of those to different people I interviewed over the years in my podcast and follow, that I put together information on each of those items. And then my phase 1 of my program is a 5-day jumpstart challenge. And then it goes into phase 2. It's more of a 21-day reset and reboot. And then the last phase is maintenance. We're teaching, okay, now how do you apply this to long-term living and do it, say, 80% of the time, and then, keep reassessing. Maybe you go back and do phase 1 every couple months, or some people I know I like to do it once a month and just do a little reboot, or once a quarter as the seasons change. So the holistic method, I just found over the years as a personal trainer for 25 years that you can't train someone with exercise 2-3 days a week and really make progress. And if you're passionate about helping other people feel better, look better, and move better, there's so much more to it. And I kind of came up with this over the years out of my passion and finding this more my purpose to help other people.
Love it. And it's so very in alignment with the After 50 fitness formula for women. So we are talking the same language, sister.
Yeah,
love it.
That's why I was told to talk to you. You need to talk to Deborah.
So let's ask you the hardest question of the day. Is there, I know, are you sitting down? Is there a question that you wish I would have asked you? Is there something I missed?
Probably a good one would be, are you healthy now?
Oh, are you healthy now? That's a great question. Let me ask that.
Well, it's been 5 years. I still can't do a half marathon very well, or a marathon, or, for sure not an Ironman or half Ironman triathlon. So I find that I do this with my own clients. I need to practice what I preach, that it's finding out where your sources of stress are. And I've been identifying what my chronic stress is coming from. And I need to make a serious life change to turn that around. And that's business related. And so I think a lot of it's finding what keeps you take one step forward, 2 steps back. And what is it, in your body when you're have that chronic stress, your immune system's down, so you're more susceptible to, like, I went to Mexico for Christmas, and of course I get sick and felt like I had a parasite infection for 3 months. So then you have something else, and then it feels like, mitochondrial dysfunction, and it's just this constant, cascade of events. You start to get healthier, and then you have a setback, and then you start to go. So it's learning of why is this happening, and that's when I'm working with clients, is what is your root cause? And for me, I've identified it, and it will change next year.
Wow. Really insightful. And what I love is that you kind of pulled back the curtain for our listeners. And, listeners, I think it's realistic to realize this too is unique to you, but it can last a long time. So it's very worth listening to the signs and the signals now that are doing something in a whisper before they start to shout at you and they act like a stop sign, halting you altogether in your tracks. So, we're talking to somebody who is, by anyone's terms, an elite athlete, right? nobody goes all day doing 2.4 mile swims, 112 mile bike rides, and 26.2 mile run and finishes, without having some pretty awesome conditioning and discipline and motivation. So, if you're out there and you're suffering, it's no lack of discipline and motivation on your part either. It's just, it's a wake up call. So I hope y'all listen and have the takeaways that Debbie shared today. And listeners, by the way, if you have a question, you can leave that below the show link at flipping50.com. But before we sign off, Debbie, where can listeners basically get more Debbie? Where should they go?
Well, I have my Life is Not a Race, my very personal story that I shared is on Amazon, as well as the WHOLESTIC Method manual with a great workbook to work on yourself with my programs in it. And then my website, debbiepotts.net, is where you'll find blogs. I have trying to write more each week and having a little more information on there, as well as my podcast that comes out every Tuesday, the Whole Athlete podcast.
So awesome. Okay, listeners, there you have it. And we will put that in the show notes. So if you're driving, you're walking, you're lifting, keep doing your thing, and you can always come back. So to get the most from this week's episode, check out today's show notes at flipping50.com/podcast, where you'll find the juicy links to catch up with Debbie and perhaps look into the WHOLESTIC Method and her workbook. So I'll see you in the next episode. And what are you waiting for? Let's start flipping 50 together.